So the juvenile task force and jail task force is simply to ensure that our assets do what they were designed to do, which is to rehabilitate and house individuals who have been accused or convicted of a crime, to make sure that when they re-enter society, that they are better than when they went through those doors. And based on what we're seeing at both facilities, that is not the case. These facilities were built when air conditioning units were not required in southern U.S. weather. And so at some point, all these buildings had to be retrofitted. The low ceilings that we saw in the jail, the same low ceilings that we see in the juvenile detention. The ability to grab onto wires or cameras and make it a more unsafe environment. We always talk about the kids, but what about the workers? Currently, the state requires, from what we found on these tours and our discussions, 1-to-8 ratio during the daytime, 1-to-16 at nighttime. They have people my size. And also, now that they've raised the age to 20 years and younger, you have people who have full-time jobs that can work in industry, who are largely my size, dealing with somebody who may be a woman of lesser stature in a 1-to-16 or in a 1-to-8 ratio. So we need to have a facility that's built with today's standards. Another thing that we learned is with the low ceilings of how the last folks escaped, there's razor wire that's up there. Technically, the razor wire is illegal, and we have to get approval from the state on annual or multi-annual basis to ensure that we can keep those up, because our facility is beyond the time. So one thing we saw in the yard, which is what you guys are most concerned about, which is how can they jump on the roof. I literally put my hand in Joe Butler, like the old game you play when you do a backflip with a cuff on your hand. I could toss somebody on the roof, they could jump off the front of the building and be gone.
It's as tall as this roof, right?
It's literally just as tall as this roof. So we have to, when we talk about retrofitting, I don't believe there's an ability to retrofit for less than, and I'm gonna give an estimate of about $50 million. If we're talking about retrofitting or extending the ceilings or roofs of the building, right? It would cost too much money to do it, and it wouldn't make sense to taxpayer dollars, number one. Number two, we also want to be able to do vocational things, technical skills, so when they leave here, they can go into the workforce. We don't really have the ability to do that here or at the jail in the way that we want to do so. So my opinion is that the facility has no choice but to replace it. Our next steps will be to go to Terrebonne and to Lake Charles to look at those facilities, and then potentially go look at 2 more out of state to determine what a new facility looks like, what a facility that's designed for true rehabilitation and re-entry looks like. And then at that point, come back and allow public input on how we take the appropriate next steps. I'm gonna let somebody else talk because I went too long. I know, but I know y'all gonna take 30 seconds.
You were the citizen here representing what stood out to you in all this?
A lot of things that stood out were the low ceilings, like you said. A lot of the things that he already said in regards to making sure that not only the detainees that are here are safe, but also to the staff is safe as well. So that's definitely something that I want to make sure that in all the options that we're looking at areas of making better safety for the individuals that not only are housed here, but also that work here.
What is it gonna take to get a new facility? I mean, I hate that. It's a hard question, but what is it gonna take?
There's only one answer what it takes to get a new facility. It's called money. And so a lot of people, when they look at the kids that are housed here, they cannot empathize with those kids. You know, I always tell people when I go back to the statement, it's like North Baton Rouge, everybody says, well, why don't they just do this? Or why don't they just do that? Because they are not a part of your educated, affluent community that sees things in a different way. A lot of these folks are marginalized people who have gotten to a life of crime because they couldn't get medicine for a grandmother, or because they had a hungry sister that was crying at home and they had to figure out how to feed them. Until you've been in that community, until you've been a part of that marginalized group, then you can never say what you will or won't do. And so you can talk about all the opportunity out here, all the programs, but if people don't have broadband access, which is what we talked about from a state standpoint, if people don't have the resources, right, to get to the resources. Most of them don't have transportation and don't have money to get on the bus. So we're talking about a subset of our population that most people frown upon, but they've never walked down one of those streets that these people live on. They've never gone into a classroom where you have a heavy set of children who are behind because the parent wasn't educated. They didn't put much emphasis on it. Now the kid is not being educated, and it becomes a generational cycle, which leads to poverty in that same community. A lot of people eat the meats that are in the corner stores and at the end of the streets within the four corners of the neighborhood. So until you can be a part of that environment and understand the challenges that these folks go through, you'll never understand why it's so important to spend the money to build these new facilities. You know, my kid may not come here, your kid may not come here, because we know the resource and access that exists, that if our child were to get into trouble, how to rehabilitate and do the right things by them long term. Some of these folks are locked up because their parents are currently locked up as well. So who's taking care of their kid? Who's really caring for their kid? People go crazy behind broken hearts in relationships. Imagine what happens when you come home and there's no father or mother there. And that's what we're dealing with in the juvenile facility, but also what leads to the adult facility.
You're talking about long-term solutions. In the short term, based on what you saw today, how do we prevent breakouts?
So if you saw the doors that were broken into, I mean, I'm gonna pick on Sudan. She's the smallest person here. She could have easily broken down one of those doors. They're older, the locks are on the outside. It's not a high security facility. It's a detention center where people are expected to be here for 30 days or maybe 60 to 90 days at the longest. But you've had people here for 2.5 years. And their court dates continually get extended and extended. And so they come here at 15, like the one that's still on the run now, and almost 18 years old, up to 20 years old. You have a lot of time to scope out, and that adolescent mind has now become an adult mind. So my critical thinking skills have grown, and I know how to outsmart the system. And so we have to process them faster, number one, but we also have to have a facility that's stronger. And the city has done the right thing. Let me be clear. The city has ordered the right security doors. The problem is these are cinder block walls, okay? If you put a 300-pound door on a cinder block wall and somebody hits that door, the entire wall comes down. So we can't retrofit those doors on these walls. So it's going to have to be a major overhaul in every wing. These are customized doors that take, you know, with supply chain issues still being what they are on a national level, they take a while to come in. The public doesn't want to hear the excuse. The public's scared when somebody breaks out. I'm going to ask those same people that are scared to invest. The same way you go get an alarm system, the same way you go and upgrade details for your home and your car, help the city parish upgrade the details of how we house these kids, but more so how we rehabilitate them.
How much did the city parish waste on those doors?
How much what?
How much did the city parish waste on those doors if we can't use them?
The city parish didn't waste a dime on those doors because the door had to be in place initially, and then a temporary door had to be put up to make sure that those wings were still usable. This facility only holds 52 people, but we have 200 plus that are in probation status, which means they can't all be housed here. These are the most egregious offenders based on their charges. So we didn't waste a dime on the doors. As a matter of fact, we need to spend more on the doors, but a temporary solution had to be put in place until a long-term one could be done. So no, a dime wasn't wasted.
No, that's well said, Councilman Hurst. This facility was designed and built about 70 years ago. It was designed and built for youth who were probably 13, 14 years old, things of that nature. And now we're getting much older youth in here, and that's it.
And not only that, but I think we need to realize that the standards at the time that this facility was built, the standards never changed. The standards never caught up with the needs of the community, the needs of the criminal justice system, as well as the types of crimes that many of the youth housed here are now committing. And so to Councilmember Hurst's point, we've had those preliminary conversations with the sheriff, with the district attorney's office, and we're continuing to explore more ways in which we can create more sound security measures here for the short term, and then exploring more opportunities for the long term.
So one of the things that we have identified in the task force so far has been there needs to be a comprehensive workflow created for everyone that is on the team, whether it's individuals that are physically here in the grounds or at the parish prison, but also too in the judicial system, as well as the district attorneys. So we want to make sure that our policies and procedures and processes and workflows make a more robust system where individuals that don't need to be here aren't here, and individuals that are here are processed through as swiftly as possible.
It's a really old facility, guys. It was built for younger youth accused of much less serious crimes. To me, it looked like a school in there with higher security. I mean, that's what it was built to be. And now we have more older youth with much more serious crimes.
Now, I will say one quick thing I thought about, I think it's gonna help sell it. So, go ahead, man, go ahead. So one of the things that we saw at the latter part of the tour was a salad port. The salad port and the visiting area are one and the same. Which means if I have a youth that's being entered into the facility, the intake unit is the same place where I'm visiting with my child. Which means now I have to get the parents to go into their parking lot of cars and other areas of the facility before I can bring that youth into and provide the intake process. The same thing goes with the court system. There is a visiting area out there, but we have a choice to either, not visiting, sorry, there's a waiting area out there, but we have a choice to either use it as a waiting area or potentially retrofit it for a visiting area. So there's not enough land here. We're sitting in a T building that has been glued to an existing building. There are 2 more T buildings outside. That should tell you that those T buildings are typically considered to be temporary trailers that have now become long-term investments. And we've had complaints from those apartments as well. They should all be housed under one roof. The Sally Port should never face a main highway. Okay, juveniles should not be seen by any adult as they enter or exit a facility, but the way that this facility is designed, it automatically puts us in violation based on the year that it was built and how we enter and exit the building from a intake process. So those things are already out of whack. The razor wire is illegal. Everything about this facility is illegal, but is allowed to be used because of the time period in which it was built, which tells us that we have to do something different as a task force.